Welcome back, everyone, to another Super Rugby Podcast with your host, Damien Warren and
Toby Harris.
And can I just say, that sounds so good compared to last week's.
No, it doesn't.
Any comments
totally
on last week's?
I totally did. I tell you what, we had a lot of people ringing in today.
We did, saying it was the funniest intro we've ever had.
And
I would say that was very, very true. And can we just take a moment to pause and think about this weekend's rugby matches that have taken place? And there was only 2 games.
I know, but still, so very exciting.
I think my bum cheeks
Wow.
have been tighter than never before watching the Hurricanes take on the Crusaders.
Mate, in those shorts that you were wearing all week, they did look rather peachy.
Someone said to me, how did you feel? And we don't normally swear on the show, but how did you feel while watching the end of that game? And my honest opinion was I was shitting myself.
We were robbed.
I think, well, we're going to go over that later. But first of all, we've got to do our listeners' questions. And our first listener question comes from Crazy Kiwi Dave, who's living in the Sunshine Coast of Australia.
Why are all the Kiwis in bloody Australia?
It's all about the money.
And the sunshine.
Absolutely. Anyway, I'm not going to read it all out. But firstly, he says, have really enjoyed listening to the Super Rugby Podcast and have been amused by some of the difficult questions that Toby asks in the quiz section.
I'm glad someone's finally listening to me because you don't bloody do it.
All I've got to say, Crazy Kiwi Davis, do not give him any other reason to give me any more difficult questions. But anyway, Dave's question is a fantastic one. He's talking about SANZAAR approach to trying to grow and retain talent. He's disappointed that the Sunwolves have been axed. He's disappointed that SANZAAR haven't looked at the Pacific Islands and the Asian market. And he's even mentioned here that the Western Force, when they've been binned off, started up their own competition, which is doing really well, pulling in good crowds. So why do you think they're not starting up a similar competition, tapping into those markets with possibly a first division, a second division with where you've got relegation and promotion, Tobes?
Well, first things first, it's probably money.
Yeah, I definitely think SANZAAR are worried about money.
Yes, but can I just say, you know, in New Zealand with the Mitre 10, there are 2 tiers.
Yeah.
And I think it works really, really well. You know, we've seen Wellington drop down before into the second tier.
Yes, yeah.
And, the bigger names can, go back and forth. But
it actually means down at both ends of the table. It's interesting viewing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You're at the top. Yeah. You're like, we're going to win it. And if you're at the bottom, are we going to stay up?
Well, that's right.
And sometimes it goes right down to the last
game.
I would love to see it.
Oh, so would I, but I just don't think it's feasible.
No, it's definitely feasible. It's buy-in from the clubs. And they want to look after number one. They know if they get relegated, then their money their money gets relegated
feasible,
as well.
But there's just no money. That's the thing.
It's
Who's going to provide all the money for it?
So if we look at the Six Nations competition, there is truckloads of money.
Do we have to look at it?
Yeah, we do. But all of those countries are not interested in a relegation promotion because they're looking after number one.
Yeah,
and themselves. The same thing is happening here with SANZAAR. SANZAAR, if they introduce in other countries, then there is a possibility that the main, let's say...
the SANZAAR won't really be there anymore, will they? Because they are South African, Australian and New Zealand.
And Argentina. So if you bring in Japan...
Is that what the extra A's for?
Yeah, exactly. You bring in Japan, you bring in the Pacific Islands, then let's be honest, sometimes when, let's say, you don't want to point fingers, but let's look at the Reds.
Yeah.
The Reds potentially... or the Blues, might potentially get binned off from the top competition, and then they're down into that second div where there won't be as much money available, and their squad sizes may be, affected.
But with the teams that go in, would it be Pacific Island teams? So would it be Tonga, Would it be Samoa? Would it be Fiji?
No.
Or would it be clubs?
It would be like the Sunwolves.
Right. Okay.
So there'd be Pacific Island clubs or franchises.
Could a Samoan franchise support?
Well, that's the problem. SANZAAR would be having to support them. You look at
They'll be pumping so much money into those franchises that they'll be almost be losing it.
That they would be losing money. Yeah, absolutely, because there isn't the money. There isn't the money there to start with. There isn't the money from the crowds or the advertising to warrant it. There is definitely the
I think the crowds are there though.
The crowds are there, but they're not paying a lot of money to go. You look at that game in Suva.
Yeah, that's true.
And the government pretty much propped up the whole crowd, although they were wearing 50 quid tops, weren't they? And they're like, we've got free tickets.
It was a bloody big crowd, though.
Hey, kids, do you want to jump? We've got loads of money. So it's all about money. It is all about money. And I know that World Rugby have binned off their countries league, which was going to be ideally for, I think, about 12 countries to all play against each other. And there was going to be relegation and promotion. And it was the Six Nations countries that said, we're not interested. Because we might be the ones that get relegated. It's all about looking after your own, and that is the only issue with rugby. It is still an old boys network game.
It is, but I think going forward, those countries are going to have to say yes.
I think they'll say yes to an America.
I think,
but they won't.
To bring rugby, higher profile.
But they won't do it, mate.
Which is frustrating.
Until World Rugby put their foot down and say you will.
But it's because, all those clubs or all those countries get two people around that table.
Oh, massively. SANZAAR and the Six Nations have got all the power.
Yeah.
And what's in it for them to give more power to smaller nations?
Yeah.
It means that potentially then they won't be as successful. They know as soon as America opens up and they start doing well, then the smaller countries are going to struggle. So it's really unfortunate. It is all about money. The whole reason why they binned off the Sunwolves, because there is money for the Japanese market. We know that. But the reason that South Africa were upset about Japan not voting for them for the World Cup. So that showed you how fickle.
It's almost childish.
Childish it is, yeah. And you've got a whole bunch of old boys who are thinking, what we're doing now is great.
Yeah.
And we're not bothered by World Rugby. We're bothered by our rugby, which is a real shame. But Crazy Kiwi Dave, great question.
Very good
Quite
question.
heavy. Quite heavy question.
It's my brain. It really hurt my brain. And my brain is small and very dehydrated at the moment.
It's not really one for the Super Rugby Podcast. No. A serious question, is it?
Right. Well, I've got another one here.
Have you got a Bobby Dazzler?
No, not the Bobby Dazzler.
Oh, okay. We're saving the Bobby Dazzler for last.
So this one is from Owen.
Yes.
And he is a massive fan from the UK. And he said, while watching...
Hang on, is he a massive fan of the Super Rugby Podcast, or is he a massive fan of Super Rugby?
He just says a massive fan from the UK.
Excellent.
While watching the MLB, Major League Baseball?
Yes.
Yeah. At the weekend in the UK, I was wondering what your thoughts would be to play a league game from Super Rugby in the UK or elsewhere in Europe to boost viewing figures and fans from overseas. Would the extra revenue created be able to keep players in the Super Rugby competition rather than going to Europe for higher wages?
Owen is an absolute superstar. They're actually, Owen, you probably don't know about this, but they are thinking currently the New Zealand Rugby Football Union are thinking about playing a lot more of their test matches overseas.
Yeah.
And that is purely down to revenue. So they're actually planning to play games like the Australian games, the Argentinian games, the South African games, and saying, actually, we're going to play those games in England, Singapore,
Well, there was that one in Singapore. We have played Ireland a few times in America.
Yeah.
We've also played America in America.
Yeah. There is a lot of money selling out huge stadiums in those countries.
Yeah.
That's the next, because, the NZRFU control Super Rugby, the New
Yeah.
Zealand franchises. So
Yeah.
therefore, I can just see them saying, look, guys, we have to make more money. One way of making more money is to play a game
Yeah.
for each of the Super Rugby.
Yeah.
You're thinking that there's 5 New Zealand franchises playing one of each of your games let's say in
one of your
Twickenham.
home games.
One of your home games
Well,
at
didn't the
Twickenham.
Crusaders did that? Was it after the earthquake?
They did, yeah, against the Sharks. And what a game that was.
What was the final score?
Have no idea, but it was a large score to a large score. I do know that the Crusaders won. I do remember Sonny Bill playing. I do just remember thinking, if this doesn't get UK fans interested in Super Rugby, I don't know what will.
And I think, do you know what, Damo? I think our podcast has brought in listeners and viewers to Super Rugby, and I think if we get a couple games over here,
yeah, maybe
it's just going to bloody take off.
Do you reckon they'd hire us?
We've got that little stepping stone for SANZAR, for New Zealand Rugby Football Union. We've got their little stepping stone.
So I'm not sure what that means. But yeah, I can only see it happening. I can only see it happening.
But it's good for the profile as well.
It might mean that New Zealand team playing a New Zealand team has to do it.
It's not a bad thing, though.
Because maybe the other countries won't agree.
Yeah.
But I can't see it not happening. And I do know that the Sunwolves played 2 games in Singapore this year.
Yes,
so,
they did, yeah.
Obviously the Sunwolves are only going to be in there next year as well. But countries are looking at how, or franchises are looking at ways to make more money. It upset their local crowds.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, the New Zealand local crowds, if you took one game off them, they wouldn't even notice, mate.
No.
In fact, it'd probably be more likely that crowds would come because they've got one less.
Yeah.
And I do think that the Super Rugby franchises should be taking their games to smaller areas as well.
Totally agree.
But that wouldn't be making any more money. So, Owen, I think it's only a matter of time, and I could imagine the UK being top of their list. The only issue is the travel that they've got to talk about.
Yeah.
But up next
We've
is
got the
possibly the best question we've ever been asked. Do you want to go for it, Tobes?
I'll go for it, yeah. If you had the TARDIS?
The TARDIS, mate, yeah.
TARDIS.
Doctor Who.
And could travel back through time and grab each of the Rugby World Cup winning teams and put them in a tournament, who do you think would win? So we've got All Blacks in 87.
David Kirks, yep.
Yeah. We've got 91 Wallabies.
Yep.
95 the Springboks. Then we've got 99 the Wallabies again. Awful team with the 2003 English Roses. You put the English Roses.
He put the English Roses, mate, not me.
Razzle-dazzle, mate. Come on, sharpen up. And then we got the Springbok again in 07, and then the All Blacks in 2011 and 2015.
So I'm going to discount some teams straight away.
Yes.
You know me, I like to discount. I'm going to say that David Kirk's 1987 All Blacks
Agreed.
not going to make
Even though they won.
Even though they won. I'm then going to go and say that the Francois Pienaar's 1995 Springboks, unless that was played in exactly the same year, with exactly the same chefs working in exactly the same restaurants.
Oh my God, we've gone in early.
They're not going to win either. They did incredibly well, and I'm glad that happened. But just imagine the movie, right? The real Invictus movie. Nelson Mandela creeping into the
a little bit of spices
into the restaurant. Let's not go there. Okay, right. I'm going to say that the 2011 All Blacks not quite as good as 2015, so we're going to discount them.
Yeah, agreed.
So we're left with Nick Farr-Jones's 2001 Wallabies, John Eales's 1999 Wallabies, and Johnny Wilkinson's 2003 English Roses, and the 2007 Springboks. So
And
Tobes.
the 2015.
Oh, and 2015 All Blacks. What do you think, Tobes?
Well, as an English rugby fan, they were good though.
I unfortunately have to keep them in there till quite late on. I think Nick Farr-Jones's team, right up there. So I'm going to keep them in. I'm going to say they're going to be semi-finalists. I think they're just just to beat John Eales' team?
I'm going to take out John Eales' team now.
Okay. So here we go. The 2007 Springboks, the 2015 All Blacks, 2003 English Roses.
To be fair, the 2007 Springboks were pretty good. They had a pretty sharp team.
Okay, but would they beat the 2015 All Blacks?
No.
No. So let's cross them out, and let's say that the 2015 All Blacks are in the final. And who are they going to be playing, Tobes?
Not England.
Not England. So let's cross out England. And actually, to be fair, that England team was a great team.
It was.
But it was kind of 10-man rugby. Nick Farr-Jones's 2091 team. Let's just go through some of the names in that set. You've got Phil Kearns. You've got Ewan McKenzie, John Eales, Rod McCall.
Such a good player. Got David Campese down the bottom.
David Campese. You've got Tim Horan, Jason Little, and Herbert at the back.
Herbert.
There are so many good players there.
Yeah.
And they were before their time. They really dominated Test rugby for quite a few years in and around there.
Can you please pronounce the two number 8s? Oh my gosh.
I got Troy. You say the last name.
What about the one above it?
Okay, so they're a great side. But you know what? I know we're a little bit biased.
No, we're not.
We
Don't
are.
be
We
silly.
are.
No,
I don't think you can beat that. I don't think you can beat that 2015
No.
All Black side. They were absolute quality.
And even the Wallabies that ended up runners up were quality.
Were a really good side.
Yeah.
Yes. But they were unstoppable that 2000, and they dominated world rugby for just years. I mean, literally, they dominated before 2011.
Yeah.
They just won the final, and then they dominate for a whole another 4 years.
Yeah.
And arguably, have they dominated since? I wouldn't say they've dominated.
Maybe a couple of years after.
But
then we've bloody gone off, haven't we?
So, Darren, superfan Darren, I'm going to say it has to be the 2015 All Blacks.
Yeah.
But his question doesn't stop there.
No, his next question is absolutely fabulous. Then my second question is a little harder. Same situation, but who would win in a tournament between the runners-up? So we've got France.
Yeah. First World Cup.
Yeah. England.
No chance.
No. The All Blacks, 95. France again, 99. Australia, 2003. England, 07. France, 11. Australia, 15. Now, I'm going to do what you did and cross off some straight away.
France.
Yes.
They're a good side. Good side, but no.
No.
England, definitely not.
No. Can I say England 07 as well, please?
Yes, please.
Yep.
Okay. Were England 07 possibly the worst team to make the final?
Yes.
Although they did very well in the final.
They did.
How they got there, no one knows. They had terrible run into the tournament.
I know.
But they got there.
Yeah.
France, 2000, and I think you can cross them out. I reckon it really comes down to two teams.
France 11.
Yeah, it comes
I
down
reckon
to
two teams is 95 and 2015.
I agree. Now, it does say here, you still have to take into consideration the food poisoning.
Oh, it does actually, yeah.
Now, with food poisoning, with the food poisoning issue, I would say it'd be a very, very tight match.
Greatest All Black 15 or squad ever.
Agreed.
Has
Agreed.
to be.
Sean Fitzpatrick.
Oh, gosh. Legend.
Stormer Norman Hewitt. Craig Dowd, Olo Brown,
Hewitt.
Richard Lowe. Richard Lowe is nastiest man I've ever met. I've seen Richard Lowe. I've seen Richard Lowe in a pub eat a glass.
You know you're joking.
I know.
My God. You got Zinzan Brook there as well. You know, Andrew Murdens.
Hey, don't. Hey, Blair Larson, mate.
I don't even know who he is. Frank Bunce. Walter Little, good player.
Basher, but
look at the two at the bottom.
Glenn Osborne. Everyone forgets about Glenn Osborne. Not a good player.
Glenn Osborne.
Glenn Osborne, 1995 World Cup, Player of the World Cup.
Did he?
Player of the World Cup.
John Alomu? No?
Apparently.
Not even a sniff?
Maybe I'm wrong. But Glenn Osborne.
You talk out of your backside.
I'm almost positive.
Really?
Glenn Osborne was Player of the World Cup.
Oh, my God. You've also got Mark Ellis as well.
No, he wasn't great.
No, he wasn't.
Jeff Wilson, Alama Aramea, bold little Frank Bunce. Very, very good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that they would win. And I think they're the best team ever.
Definitely.
Best team ever.
Yep.
Josh
Kronfeld as well used to have a
Josh
t-shirt.
Kronfeld. What a player. The Richie McCaw of the old.
Yes, I agree. And Highlander's great.
Highlander's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And, he's an interesting guy. He was an artist, a musician. He had it all, mate. He had it all. He got a bit bored of rugby, apparently, and that's why he just sort of gave it up. Professional game didn't quite agree with him.
No.
But some amazing questions this week.
That was a great question.
No voice questions, though. So, Tobes, it saddens us. There's no voice questions.
But how do they do it, Damien? How do they do it?
Well, all they do...
We haven't plugged ourselves yet. We've forgotten.
All they do is you get out your iPhone, Samsung Galaxy, or other models are available. Send us a voice question via our Gmail, which is thesuperrugbypodcast@gmail.com.
You can also do it on the Facebook.
You can do it on the Facebook.
Could you do it on the Super Rugby Podcast?
Yeah, I think so.
What?
And at Super Rugby Pod on the Twitter.
Is that the Twitter?
But you wouldn't send it to that. You'd send it to the
email would be good,
address. That would be fantastic. You can also go on YouTube to watch some of these clips back that we do.
Never seen one.
I've been a bit slack recently, Toes. I do apologise, but there'll be more on there. But that is it for our listeners' questions. Up next is our reviewing of the wonderful, wonderful matches that took place over the weekend.